Major League Pickleball's trade deadline came and passed, then it came and passed again, and then it finally ended on Monday, and it completely reshaped the entire league. Teams that were playoff contenders are now completely out of the hunt, and teams that were previously overlooked now have a legit chance of winning the entire thing. There were 8 trades involving 16 players, including the male GOAT of pickleball, Ben Johns, and some people are drawing comparisons across sports, saying that the Ben Johns trade was the pickleball equivalent of the Luka Doncic trade. Others are saying that the trade was collusion between league executives. So, what happened and how did we get here? Well, the Major League Pickleball trade deadline was originally Monday, July 14th, right after the midseason tournament. Then it was moved to the 16th, and finally it was moved to the 21st. In between these announcements, however, MLP also announced that the challenger level winner would be promoted to Premier League in 2026. Prior to this, most people, including Challenger League GMs, were under the impression that all 6 Challenger teams would be promoted to Premier League in 2026. Instead, it's only one team, meaning that the stakes got way higher in Challenger League. The trade deadline was pushed back to Monday, July 21st to allow for Challenger League GMs to create more competitive rosters so that they could try to fight for promotion in Premier League. But was that the real reason? Or was it so that Ben Johns could be traded from the Hogs to the Mad Drops? Remember, the Mad Drops lost Wang Yun due to contract termination on July 12th. There were some theories surrounding collusion and manipulation of the trade deadline, and the facts of the situation just don't look good. Tom Dundon, who's the owner of the Hogs and acquired the PPA from Connor Pardoe before the merger last year, is, I believe, the largest percentage owner of the UPA. The trade deadline is extended, and then the Hogs decide to send Ben Johns to the Mad Drops in a trade that involves Connor Pardoe, the CEO of PPA and MLP. But was this really collusion? Really quickly, ProXR Prototype paddles are sold out on ProXR's website, but I have a few of them available on my website. They're one of the best paddles in pickleball, and my YouTube subscribers get 10% off by using the code ZNPSubscriber on my website, link in the description. But anyway, back to the video. At first glance, this does look pretty bad, but as I think about it deeper, I have a couple of thoughts. First, everybody in MLP is so intertwined with everybody else in the league, you could make this argument for collusion on any trade pretty much. Second, and more importantly, the Hogs didn't have any real reason to manipulate the trade deadline. I can't see how holding on to Ben Johns for one more week, a week where the Hogs didn't even play, actually would benefit them. While the optics of the trade deadline moving is bad, and it's absurd to think that the trade deadline occurred after Columbus and Brooklyn had finished their entire seasons, I don't see why collusion would have been necessary to get this done. Ben could have been traded on the 14th or the 16th, and nobody would have been batted an eye. Obviously, it would have been big news, but nobody would have thrown around these collusion accusations. So I'm actually of the opinion that this looks bad, but there probably were some legitimate administrative reasons behind the extension of the trade deadline. What happened after the Ben Johns trade is just as interesting. The Hogs decided to go full tank mode and offload their entire team, and here's why. In order to keep a player on a roster, teams had to play half the original draft price. Ben was drafted in 2024 for $840,000, meaning that the Hogs would have had to pay $420,000 to keep him. Etta would have been kept for $158,000. They decided to sell the rest of their team after those trades. They sold Roscoe Bellamy to the Flash, Martin and Tammy Emmerich to Miami, meaning that over the course of 1 week, their starting lineup went from Ben Johns, Roscoe Bellamy, Etta Tuianatoa, and Tammy Emmerich to Yvonne, Brandon French, Ava Ignatowicz, and Liz Trulick. That's just not a competitive premier level team. The trade line might as well be renamed the tank deadline, and this is exactly why MLP needs to implement 2 things. First is a league minimum spend, and second is promotion and relegation. The NBA is a great example of a league that has a minimum spend. Teams must spend at least 90% of their salary cap on their roster, and if they don't, they have to pay the shortfall to their players. This is done to make sure that teams at least attempt to create competitive rosters. There's always going to be teams in rebuilding years, but the Hogs and the Hustlers are simply uncompetitive in Premier League. Another deterrent to tanking is the idea of promotion and relegation. Would the Hogs and the Hustlers spend so little money if they had a chance to be demoted into Challenger League? I doubt it. Most leagues have mechanisms to prevent tanking, and FLP needs it pretty desperately. Other teams that are still in the picture also made some interesting moves. The Squeeze were able to add Millie Rain, the Black Diamonds were able to add Edituyana Toa in the Ben Johns trade, and we were able to add Noe Cleef from Miami. If you somehow don't know, I'm a member of the New Jersey Fives, and obviously the biggest mover was the Mad Drops. Now they're a serious championship contender. With Noe Cleef taking my spot in the starting lineup, I think that we're definitely improving our second mixed line and singles lineup, and the Black Diamonds are now a legit team. They were already in the playoff picture, but the team of Connor Garnett, Tyler Leung, Edituyana Toa, and Elise Jones, that's a legit team. I don't think they have what it takes to upset any of the top 6 teams, and I think they're still underdogs against the Squeeze and the Ranchers, but they're a good team now. The new Fives and the new Mad Drops are in action this week in Dallas, and I'll be breaking down how all of these new rosters do this weekend, so make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with Pro Pickleball and see how Ben does on his new Mad Drops team.